Welcome back to another episode of Time Out with the Sports Doctor podcast, where life, sports, and medicine intersects. We are glad that you are part of this growing community where we strive to help you strengthen your mindset, help you grow your assets, and help you achieve whatever level of success that you want for your life. Go to our website at Dr.Derrick, thesportsdoctor.com, where you can find all the latest content, and you can also follow us on our social media channels. Now, let's get into this episode. Welcome back to another episode of Time Out with the Sports Doctor podcast. We have another guest who is not a stranger at all to this podcast, Dr. Zwade Marshall from Doc2Doc Lending. He's now been on several times and we've talked about several different topics, but today is a very special one. So as physicians, we are trained to take care of dire, urgent, very serious situations in the hospital, in the operating room. But are we really trained to take care of our own dire situation? And that's what Dr. Marshall is here to talk to us about today. So welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me again, brother. I like the play on the words dire. Like, we love acronyms in healthcare. And in this case, dire means what it says, but it's also DIRE, is in debt, insurance, retirement, and emergencies. We're recording this on July 1st, 2025, and it's an important day in the lives of our peers, or the younger generation of doctors that are coming out of medical school are likely, for the most part, all transitioning today into their internships or the next stage in their residency program or into their fellowships or into their first jobs. And so it's a day that marks a transition, and each of the personas, each of those cohorts have different dire things to consider when it comes to debt, insurance, retirement, and emergencies. And I think what we're trying to convey to all of you out there right now is that it's not any more or less important depending upon when you're doing this. If you're a fourth year medical student transitioning, there's a lot to consider right now. You've got between $200,000 and $300,000 of student loan debt. You're thinking about student loan repayment already, because you know that there's legislation now that's going to make it so that if you don't pay, it's going to be reported in your credit scores and credit bureaus. And so a lot's changed in the course of the past 5 to 10 years. And being really, really diligent here is going to be important.
Absolutely. And I didn't even realize that today was July 1st transition day. And that just shows you we were supposed to do this yesterday, but here we are on this transition day, which makes it even more special.
But it's funny that yesterday, when we were supposed to do it, we were both stuck in the operating room. And so for anyone listening that's transitioning, know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And life does not get any less busy, but it's certainly a lot more rewarding, because we both reflected as we were planning for this chat on what it was like being a first year. And I can tell you that because we talked about it and I was thinking about coming onto the show today, I remember I was going from Atlanta, Emory, where I went to medical school, to start my intern year at Harvard. And it was terrifying, to say the least. But first day, if you're anyone going into an anesthesia residency right now, and you can insert your anesthesia surgeon joke as usual, but if you're going into anesthesia residency, they give you a test on day 0, Derrick. Like day 0, they want to establish a baseline for where you're going to be so that they can prove it to themselves that they taught you something over the course of the 4 years of the residency. And it's not meant to be a test that the scores really matter for you per se. It's a benchmark, but there's no feeling like the intimidation of day 0, an exam, and you think you're going to go through meet and greets. Mm-hmm. And then when you bomb the exam on day 0, how demoralizing it feels to go with all the imposter syndrome that you already have experienced. So day 0 is a tough time, and I'm still scarred from it, but I think it motivated me to work harder over the course of the year.
Yeah, and I'll just share my kind of day 0 moment is I'm an intern. I'm graduating from Howard University College of Medicine. I did not match the first time in orthopedic surgery. So I'm an intern in general surgery, which is not my end destination, but I know that I have to be the best intern I can be as a general surgery resident. However, I have to be an orthopedic intern at the same time, and I have to start preparing for
pressure
going back through the match, So I can recall going through intern year, and this was right before the shift to 80-hour work week. So going through that intern year at the same time, always thinking, what do I need to do to get into the orthopedic department. I need to go to grand rounds. I need to help the interns or the other residents at the same time. So that pressure is real, and you're always comparing yourself. So that's one of the hardest things during this transition time for doctors. You have to focus on so many things at the same time. You might be new to a city. You might be trying to get settled into an apartment. You need to meet the guy to turn on your electricity, however you have to be around. So we understand what you're going through right now because we've all been through it and we've all made it through. So it's possible. It's not necessarily easy. This time of your life is going to demand a lot of focus. It's going to demand a lot of things out of you. However, I want you to feel relief in knowing that it's already everything that it wants out of you is already in you. However, you just have to be calm and collective and be able to learn how to process all this information in real time.
That's really inspiring. I'm happy that you shared that because I meet so many transitioning residents who are planning on trying to match into a specialty a second or third time. Some of my closest friends that are phenomenal physicians, that are program directors and on the verge of being department chairs, two bats at base to get into their chosen specialty. And there's a certain resilience and a grit that comes with all of that we go through collectively, but especially the folks that did not get where they wanted to be the first time. And the character building, the empathy for others, the knowing that you got to work really hard with an uncertain future, and just trust and believe that the work that you do is going to be recognized and the rest will kind of fall into place, and just kind of doing the best you can with whatever's in front of you in that moment. So hats off. And if you're hearing this and you need that extra word of encouragement, I'm sure Dr. Burgess's story there was inspiring.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it can be done. And that's why I like to share my story, because so many people, we get tunnel vision in medicine. Like if we don't get into med school the first time, or if we see like our classmates have that perfect specialty, they're going to that number one hospital. I hate the fact now that on rank day, everybody walks across the stage and opens up an envelope, because some people it's the best day of their life, and some people it's like, I'm holding this envelope, but it's not really what I want. But you have to get up there and you have to smile and you have to go through it. However, it might be, well, I'm not going to say even it might be, it is the situation that you're supposed to be in at that time. And it's whatever you have to get out of that situation, you go, you do your best, you get it, and you move on, because you don't really know what you're being prepared for. Like you said, not matching does not mean you can't ascend through academics, or ascend to be a practice owner, or ascend to be a chairman or a program director later. Sometimes you're just going through this transition. And if you make it through, that's when your real dream awaits you.
Absolutely. And challenging part of all of this is you just describing the hardship of the clinical work.
Right.
Now, what about balancing your family life? You've got a kids, you've got a wife or a husband, a partner. You're thinking about your finances. We began by saying, there's $200,000 to $300,000 worth of debt, and so you've got this gorilla on your back,
Yeah.
and that is all the expectation of I have to clinically perform to progress through my training. But life doesn't stop or pause because we're going through this time in our lives. And so we're effectively mortgaging our youth for this higher calling of practicing medicine and service. And so as you think about some of the things that you should be thinking about from the moment you begin that transition, and from any stage, it's student loan repayment. There's the PAYE program, PAYE. And now I'm getting into the D in dire. So the debt in dire, debt, student loan debt, the biggest thing that we all have. It's a mortgage already before you buy your first house. And thinking about repayment programs and what it means today. Do not do this on your own. Don't check the box, sign the documents without speaking to a financial advisor or an expert, because the PAYE program is one program that you can potentially enter. PAYE, it's pay as you earn. It oftentimes offers lower payments than the IBR, or income-based repayment. Eligibility requirements are a lot more stringent, but if you get into that program, it'll be less cash flow out of your pocket, but it does continue to accrue interest over time. Similarly, try to avoid forbearance if you can, because a forbearance means that you stop making any payments because of a hardship, and the interest still accrues over time, and it can end up ballooning and getting compounded again on the initial principal. So if you can enter into a thoughtful repayment program with the guidance of a financial advisor who can help you budget to see what payments can you afford to make. And do you need to be in the pay program or an income-based repayment program that's going to have a stepwise graduation up as you earn? And there's nothing wrong if you don't come out of residency and go to your first job. If you go into a fellowship program and you're still earning relatively less than you would in your full-fledged career, the payments do not escalate that much. So something to think about.
Yeah, that's good, because you mentioned forbearance and hardship times to pull money out of your loans, and different things are going to be dangled over your head, and they're going to sound good because you do have an emergency right now that you need to take care of. However, you're thinking about the long run with your student loans and how you're going to be best able to pay it off, and you don't want to put yourself in a trap early on. So thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely. And life is not linear. You're going to be some forward steps, some backward steps. And, God knows that for me, I had to take some backward steps and had to do things that I wish I didn't have to. But sometimes you're given just two bad options, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got to figure out how to survive in that moment and then repair it for the future. And that's also why we're here, that our journey wasn't perfect from a financial perspective either. I came out of medical school with a mid 600 FICO score. I didn't have bad behavior per se, but there were missed credit card payments over time. There were challenges within my personal credit profile that I had to work to come out of. And so today's talk is meant to help you know that you should avoid it if you can be thoughtful and intentional about that dire acronym. But should something happen, you don't give up and you understand the way these FICO profiles work, the way risk analysis works, and the things that you can do to help yourself. Beyond forbearance and pay, there's a repay program which is similar. But the last thing I'll say about student loans is you've heard a lot about public service loan forgiveness, the PSLF programs that are out there, and there have been changes to that as well. But do know that this is still in effect. If you are employed by a nonprofit or a government hospital, which is what most residency programs are, you can get into a qualifying repayment plan, either IBR or pay, that counts those years while you're in residency and or fellowship against the 120 months of on-time payments that's needed for you to have an eventual forgiveness. There are caveats to all this, so speak to a professional, but think about these things as you go into that meeting around what options do I have if I'm going to be doing a 6-year residency and a 3-year fellowship. That's 9 years. You've got 1 year left to possibly have those loans forgiven.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point as well. And now let's transition on to I. And by I, it's insurance. So two main types of insurance: life insurance and disability insurance. Life insurance, we hear about it across the spectrum in life. We know that life insurance, we get that to have an umbrella basically over us just in case something catastrophic happens, so that our family and loved ones that we leave behind will not have to pay off all this debt that we're talking about, or we'll be able to have enough money to afford our lifestyle. But disability insurance, especially for physicians, is something that's very important as well, because with disability insurance, you're basically allowing yourself to be protected, your ability to make your income as a physician to be protected, so that if you're not able to do your job like an anesthesiologist or orthopedic surgeon, that you still have the ability to make an income. So let's speak to that really quickly. Are you a young physician who's frustrated in figuring out how you're going to continue to fund yourself through this early phase of your career? Are you tired of speaking to lenders who do not understand your plight? We have a solution for you. Let me introduce you to Doc2Doc Lending.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Zwade Marshall, co-founder, CEO of Doc2Doc Lending. We are the exclusive lending partner for physicians and dentists in the United States. We underwrite our loans thoughtfully, knowing the physician journey and your career trajectory. We're a company that's been founded by doctors and built for doctors because we get it. Banks don't understand all the ways in which we struggle through educational debt, consumer debt, as we're trying to make ends meet during a very challenging time of our lives. Doc2Doc is underwritten with thoughtful process that's meant to give you credit for all the unique physician characteristics that you have, like being board certified, having a dual degree, undergoing and finishing a specialty or a fellowship as well, and just being employed as a physician. All of those things give you credit to get your interest rate lower with our platform.
So we are glad to partner with Doc2Doc Lending. So if you are stuck trying to figure out where you can get funding or where you can continue to support your family during this time of transition in your career, we offer you a solution. Doc2Doc Lending, physician-owned, understands your plight, understands what it's like to be an early physician or a physician who wants to do something outside of medicine. Check out Doc2Doc Lending. This segment is a paid advertisement for Doc2Doc Lending, Inc. Loans are made available by DR Bank, member FDIC, and are subject to credit approval and available in approved states only. Representative APRs for Doc2Doc range from 9.99% to 26.99%. Terms and conditions available at doc2doclending.com.
And this part's a little bit morbid to think about getting hurt or dying, but we must. We're health professionals, and so we've been around enough death and illness to know that it can happen to us too. We're not infallible. The life insurance piece, you said it perfectly. We've got dependents. We've got folks that we love. And if you have co-signed loans as well, many of us have our student loans co-signed by an aunt, uncle, parents. You don't want to saddle them with that debt in the off chance that you do get harmed or die. So term life insurance does that protection. And term life insurance premiums are really, really affordable, especially when you're young and healthy, right? Because the likelihood of you really dying is so low that the actuarial risk makes it so you can get a good policy for less than $50 a month, and oftentimes a lot cheaper than that to cover the cost of your student loans and your expenses. So don't scrimp in that. Many residency programs and GME offices will offer a life insurance policy as a part of your employment benefits. You'll hear the term whole life being kicked around a lot. That is not a concept that most residents or even early career physicians should be contemplating until they've got a lot of disposable income. So it's an investment vehicle that masquerades as insurance. It's got its real purpose within your portfolio, but that's a later situation. If anyone tries to sell you a whole life policy while you're in residency, run for the hills. You can look at a lot of online descriptors of what whole life insurance is. The other, quite likely, more likely than death, that can happen to us. And I have a partner, anesthesiologist partner, who was in his bathroom taking a shower, as he usually does before he comes to work, slipped in the shower, crashed through the glass window of his shower stall, and severed several vessels in his arm. Injury was debilitating, which meant that he could no longer perform the interventional pain procedures that we're trained to do. So he's an anesthesiologist, but he's an interventional pain doctor. And so we make our money from doing spinal cord stimulator implants, from doing epidurals and RFAs. We're using our hands all day long. He can still do can do OR anesthesia and supervise a nurse anesthetist. But because he had the right kind of disability insurance, own occupation, specialty specific, he was getting a $23,000 a month disability payment from his insurance while he continued to provide anesthesia services as an anesthesiologist, because his disability impacted his ability to perform interventional pain procedures. That's his specialty. And his insurance was underwritten for his specialty in addition to his occupation. So again, there's so much nuance in these things that we do. And that's why it's so important that we think about these things and get into having this experts that can help us to get the right insurance and the right kind of debt solutions for us as well.
Absolutely. And there are many companies out there. Be careful who you're working with. There are some physician-owned companies that have the same experience as us. There are also brokers versus people that are selling individual policies. So my preference is to work with a broker who can look at all of the big five and tell you what fits you best, versus just going to one company where they say, this is good for you. Oh, what other options do you have? Well, this is my product. So there's a difference with that.
Absolutely agreed. You want to make sure that whoever's working with you has the ability to sell you anything that is best for you and not just what's best for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on to retirement, I almost feel like D plus I equals R, so you have your debt, you have your insurance. All of this fits into that whole retirement picture. And some people might say, hold on, I'm transitioning from residency to my first job. Why am I thinking about retirement? Because your retirement is closer than you think, number one, and you have to start taking steps now if you want to retire at some point in your career. If not, you might have to work until you cannot work any longer, and you don't really know when that day of not being able to work any longer is coming. So you have to start thinking about retirement early on. Let's speak to that.
Absolutely. Warren Buffett said time in the market matters more than timing the market.
Correct.
So you want to start early. You want to have your capital inside the marketplace, having the money work for you and earning interest on it and compounding it. He who understands compound interest earns it, and he who doesn't pays it, right? So if your employer offers a 403B or a 401k with match, even a modest contribution of match, you should take advantage of it because that's free money. What does match mean? It means that if you put up $1,000 into that investment account, your employer may put up 200 or 300 or 500 bucks up to a certain cap. That is them giving you more money with which you can invest. So it ends up becoming this kind of virtuous cycle of growth to help your initial savings amount become a lot healthier over time. Roth IRA, know that residents often qualify for Roth IRA contributions due to your lower income level, and the after-tax contributions grow tax-free. Over time, as you graduate out of residency and fellowship and you start earning money, you'll realize that your tax liability or tax mitigation strategies are oftentimes as important or more important than the interest that you earn in the marketplace. Because when you're in a high tax bracket, it can erode all of the benefits that you accumulate over time in the marketplace if you don't plan your tax strategy correctly. And so thinking about strategies like a Roth that has a tax advantage benefit to it is critically important for you.
Absolutely. And there's so many things that we're just kind of touching on that you really need to go in depth in learning about pre-tax, post-tax, how all these have implications on your future. But we're really just giving you an introduction to a full real masterclass that you need to learn about as you go forward. But these are terminologies that you need to start to understand. And the more you talk about them, the more they will make sense. When I first came out of training, even up to 5-8 years ago, many of the things we're talking about today, I did not understand at all. Start to expose yourself to it, start to read, listen to podcasts, listen to audible books, doing little things during the breaks that you have to really enhance your knowledge from a financial standpoint.
The last thing I'll add to that, Doc, is automation is your friend.
Yes.
Automate your savings. So if you can afford even $100 to put in an auto pay into your savings vehicle, that's so important. It sets a habit and it harnesses compound growth. So rather than having to make a conscious decision to move the money from your checking account into the savings account every month, pay yourself first. Have it automate and auto pay into your savings.
Yeah. And that leads right into the emergency, because emergencies are going to happen. You're going to have a flat tire. You're going to have to, take a unexpected trip to see family or something. Emergencies will happen. And when you have that emergency, you don't want to have to go and start saying, "Oh, can I pull something out of my retirement money, or can I get a loan, or what?" I want to be able to have a little nest egg that is designated only for emergencies. So what's your thoughts on that?
I completely agree, and I couldn't have said any better. I think that as you begin to budget around your after-tax income, so if you're transitioning today, you'll get your first paycheck in 2 weeks, or in some programs in a month. The monthly programs are tough, just getting paid once a month. But you want to look to see exactly how much money you get after taxes, after Medicare contributions, after Social Security tax as well. What is your take-home pay? And then plan your budget. And we mentioned before about automating investment money for retirement, but automate just your savings to build a nest egg. Think of it as about having a buffer at this stage. If you're in training, 1 to 2 months of your living expenses. If you're out in practice, it should be about 6 months of your living expenses, but 1 to 2 at the stage of trainees. And segregate those funds into a high yield savings account somewhere separate from your checking, so that you won't erode into that savings account just by the ups and downs of your overall monthly budget. Avoid relying on credit cards to be your pressure release valve if you've got an emergency. It's so easy and convenient to swipe that card. It's so easy to make the minimum payment of $30 a month when the balance is $8,000. But those are the things that can drag you into a death spiral of persistent debt at a high interest. Those credit card rates are compounding daily, and it keeps you in a position of perpetual debt because it's hard to crawl out of it. So keep that emergency buffer for car repairs, bills, for travel, like Doc mentioned, in a separate high yield savings account that's earning higher interest over time, not in your retirement account, because you can't access that liquidity easily. Meaning if you need that money, you don't want to have to sell stock to get access to it. So just a high yield saving that's fairly liquid for you.
Yeah. And define what an emergency is. Meeting your friends in Cabo probably is not an emergency, but everybody's got to define it for themselves. Well, thank you once again, Dr. Marshall, for coming on. I think this has been a powerful segment. Tell the listeners how they can follow you or how they can get more information about Doc2Doc Lending.
Sure. So I am Zwade Marshall, and Doc2Doc Lending is the company that I co-founded and lead. And we help with financial literacy for doctors. It's a fund started for doctors by doctors, and we give loans to docs as well, personal loans. We're at Doc2DocLending.com. That's Doc2DocLending.com. And you'll find me on Instagram and LinkedIn. And it's Zwade at Doc2Doc Lending for my email handle. That's ZWADE. Thank you so much for your time and for having me. Remember that it's focusing on habits, not perfection. Automate bills, savings, and loan payments. We want to review your finances with experts at least quarterly. Try to use experts that have a plethora of products at their disposal and not just a singular product, like Doc said, where they're incentivized to sell the thing that they sell. And over time, not aggressively, just begin to build a confidence about finances. We don't learn this in medical school. So consume this podcast. This is a phenomenal place for you to start to get the introduction to content, and just read and listen and dial in to anything about money and finances at this stage in your career.
Absolutely. Well, thank you once again for your time. Have a great day. And this is not the last session. We will do this again. All right, everybody be blessed.
Thank you for continuing to support this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, then please leave a 5-star review. And if you haven't done so, subscribe so you continue to get the updated episodes. Until later, peace.
Hey, time out with the sports doc. Keep our head right in the game. We ain't never stopping. You are now tuned in. Trust you don't want to miss. This is where life, sports, and medicine.